So I'm making some cold frame tops today to go on my carrot bed and my other long cold frame bed. I'll show you those later. And it's a pretty simple construction technique that I use, but it stood the test of time. I mean, the existing cold frame tops that I've got, 7 years old, and they're still in really good condition. Well, maybe good condition, might be overstating it a bit, but they're certainly functional. So let me just take you through the bits. So basically, for the wooden pieces, I'm just using tile or slate battens, and I'm fastening them together with these big brackets. All the details are linked in the description, by the way, which go on the corners. These are quite expensive, these brackets, so don't bother putting them in the centerpiece there. And then I use these little brackets to go here on the underneath. And stainless steel screws are really useful. I just find if you do anything with anything other than stainless steel screws, they just rust really quickly, especially in our environment. And stainless steel staples for the same reason. And horticultural polythene. And the other thing you need is a hot day. So I've had this polythene in the polytunnel, so it gets really warm and flexible for a couple of hours. And when you're making it, you've got to get it really stretchy so that in the end it's really taut. Now actually, maybe that little bit there isn't that taut, but of course it's a really hot day, so in winter this will really tighten up nicely. And the reason you want it taut is so the rain doesn't pool in it and it runs off it. Otherwise, if it's too floppy, and I'm slightly concerned about that little bit there, if it's too floppy, it will just pool rain in it and you'll get big puddles. Even if you get it even at sort of quite an angle, sometimes it can still pull a little bit. So that's the first thing. I also put a centre batten in. I always do that. Again, that helps support it to reduce the pull-in effect with the rain. And what else can we say? Right, basically comes down to now, how do you get it taut? So you start off, let's say at this edge here, and you've got to have somewhere to sort of support it. You pull the polythene as tight as you can and pop a staple in, probably 2 or 3. Go to the other end, pull it as tight as you can, pop 3 staples in. Then go to this corner here, pull it as tight as you can that way, pop a few staples, that end, pull it as tight as you can. So then all these 4 midpoints are pulled nice and taut, and then you just work your way around, pulling it, no longer stapling it at the top, now stapling it at the back, pulling it as taut as you can, stapling it. You will rip these staples here because you'll get it tauter once it's kind of all roughly in place. But don't worry about ripping those staples, it doesn't matter, because you're going to overlay this with polytunnel repair tape, and that'll strengthen up, completely strengthen up these little tears in the polythene. Polythene repair tape is really, polytunnel repair tape is really useful because it goes over all these brackets and screws and things like that, where the wind's going to bash this up and down against this sharp edge here. All of these weak points, all these corners and edges all get overlaps with polytunnel repair tape. So that is basically it. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm actually going to do one. I'll do it sped up so you can just see me working on it. So first things first, if you're anything like me, you'll find that you can't find anywhere flat on your allotment plot. So I always make it on the bed. That I'm going to use it on, and that helps obviously with the measurements as well. So I then just like to roughly lay everything out on the bed and just tack these brackets in, and now flip the frame over so I can put these on the back, and I've got 4 more to go around the corners there. So that's all done, and actually these are incredibly rigid once they're done, and they get even more rigid once you've got the taut polythene on them, which is what I've got to do now, and I've got to find somewhere to do it, which is always tricky. Okay, first thing, cut the polythene. Make sure you leave a decent amount to grab hold of at each end. So I like to leave about 6 inches, because you do have to pull it tight, and that means you need enough to grip hold of. I buy 2 metre widths. That's pretty much as narrow as you can get. A metre's not wide enough, and obviously 2 metres is. So finally it's all taut, so I'm just putting a few extra staples in now, just to reduce the risk of it subsequently ripping free in high winds. Just don't skimp on the staples, is basically what it comes down to, because you need a lot. Occasionally a staple won't go in all the way, just hammer that in later with a and then don't be afraid to leave it kind of loose around the edges when you cut it off, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to try and seal it against the water. Water will always get in, so your objective actually is to make it easy for water to get out, rather than trying to seal it so water doesn't get in. Obviously I'm using treated timber here, and it doesn't easily rot. So it's quite a challenging job, I'll tell you. I've run out of staples again. And then we're back with the polytunnel repair tape, and as I said, this wants to go over these staples on the top, over these brackets, over the centre, over all the edges, laps over the corners, so you do get through a fair amount of repair tape, but it is absolutely worth it. I think that if you didn't put polytunnel repair tape on, it would not last. You need this to strengthen the polythene at all the weak points, and if you want belt and braces, run a strip over that crease there, because that is definitely a weak spot as well. So that is quite a palaver, but it's worth it. I think hopefully you can see, tight as a drum. Will only get tighter once it gets cold, and that is going to withstand, you know, a lot of severe gales, surprisingly. Do not be tempted to put another layer of plastic on the back. I have done that twice. It's the worst thing I ever did. Basically, they just fill with water. I don't know how the water gets in. It's been a constant mystery to me, but even though I tried to seal it up really well, you just get masses of condensation inside, and you know, and it starts leaking and it just fills up with water. It's just a waste of time. So much better just to leave it like this. You can't really keep a coal frame warm in the sense that, you know, you're actually kind of insulating it with this polythene. Polythene doesn't really insulate. The reason that these things work is because in the day they trap a lot of heat in the soil, so the soil is warm and the soil gives off heat all through the night. So that's how it works. Anyway, I'm pleased with that. It's actually the best I've made. Use brass hinges if you can, and yeah, it'll last you as long as the actual cold frame base itself, so about 10 years hopefully. So I'm all done. I just put these little bungee cords on just to hold it down, just in case it's windy. All the construction details, you can find a link down below to my ebook, and it's in the basics of gardening section. And yeah, I think it took me 4 hours to make these, and I made 3 of them, and so just over an hour, because obviously I was spending a bit of time filming. My name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.